Welcome to the 30-Minute Hour. It's the professional development podcast for authors, entrepreneurs, and career professionals who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Good evening, all.
All right. Good evening. This is a special Thursday edition of the 30-Minute Hour podcast.
I just feel like I should just stay on StreamYard like all week. Because it's like, is it Monday? Is it special Tuesday?
It's hard to keep track.
Oh, man. Just send me the link.
But no, we thought we would do a special episode because, I was having I'm going to give Kelly a formal introduction here in a minute, but I was having a conversation with her and just her topic, I think really just needs to get out there. Because I think if everybody really embraced what she's going to talk about, their success level would just skyrocket. I think their trajectory would change as far as what they're looking to accomplish. That's why I just thought it was critical that we get her on as soon as we possibly could. So
Agreed.
You are in for a treat. She is somebody, and I'm happy to tell you, that's the other reason I want to get her on, because she is actually doing what she preaches. I'm telling you, she is the living example of what she's preaching. So we'll get into that as far as exactly what she's doing and what she's accomplished and how you can achieve similar levels of success. But please know, and Kelly, we should have warned you, this is not your everyday podcast.
It's not. You thought this was your everyday podcast. You are in for a surprise.
Yeah, we do things a little differently on the 30-Minute Hour podcast. So the good news is that, you can catch us here on Facebook. You can always watch us on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you're into audio, you can check us out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your podcast. But we do things a little differently. Our goal is to help you to laugh and learn and ultimately level up, right? So share the show.
Share the show. Don't keep it to yourself.
Don't keep it to yourself. Make sure you share the show. And definitely when you hear this episode, you watch this episode, you're going to want to share it with someone else, because what Kelly is going to bring forward. So, Ted.
Yes, Eric.
I've got something that's on my mind.
Please share, Eric.
All right. I thought you would never ask, even though you've asked 110 other times, and this is episode 111. I thought you'd never ask.
111.
That's right.
I got one thing to say before you get started, Eric.
Okay.
I'm looking at how Kelly and I are like kind of positioned on the screen. And you look like real low. Like, are you sitting on the floor over there? Like, what is going on, man? You look so low compared to like where Kelly and I are.
You're right. You guys are like, maybe am I just using bad posture, or what's the deal? I need to
sit up.
Seat a little bit. Man.
Much better.
Is that any better?
Much better, man. Much better. Man. All slouching all in there, Kelly.
So if you're listening on Spotify right now, you have no idea what we're talking about. And actually, it probably is good that you're listening and not watching right now. All right. Is that better, Ted?
Much better, my friend. I know Kelly was thinking it. She's like, is Eric sitting Indian style doing the podcast, man? Sit up.
I haven't adjusted the settings on my seat. It's the same one we do every episode, but okay. Cool. Anything else? So, Ted, before I continue, anything else? Do I have screens in my teeth or anything like that you want to point out? Okay.
No, not that I can notice. No.
All right. I'm sure you'll tell me. Okay. Right. So, here's what's on my mind. So today, I had to pose a question. Who's holding your ladder? That's the question I want to hold. And this really ties into our guest today. You'll see in a second. And it reminds me, so my wife suggested that I take a break from podcasting to accomplish some household projects. Right. Yeah, she said that'd be a good idea. You need to start doing some of these household projects. So my first assignment, Ted, was to change the light bulb in the basement bathroom.
Okay.
Right. So based on the size of the room, I can handle this by myself. I got like a little step ladder and I made it happen. Right. So the next task I had to accomplish was I had to change the light bulb that was located in the garage. So this was a larger space. I needed to get a 10-foot ladder. Since I was climbing higher, I needed additional support to keep me from falling. So I decided to enlist the help of my 11-year-old daughter and 8-year-old son to secure the base of the ladder. Now, here's the problem with that. At times during the assignment, they would just wander off, right? Find something else to do. They would leave me at the top of the ladder. Okay. So after changing the garage light bulb, who knows where they went. It was time to clean the gutters at the top of the house. That's the next assignment. My wife's tired of me doing these podcasts all the time, do some work. So it's time to clean the gutters. So this required a 30-foot ladder. And depending on my kids, could be hazardous to my health.
Right.
So to accomplish this tall task, I needed to upgrade my level of support. So in this case, I decided to call the handyman. And somebody you and I know, Ted. I called the handyman, and he actually brought 2 of his helpers to hold the ladder, and we ultimately completed the task. So the question is, what does my honey-do list have to do with you in this conversation, right? That's the question.
That's what I was thinking.
All right. So here is that moment in the show. You just need to stop what you're doing. If you're driving, we need your undivided attention. We just need you to pull over to the side of the road right about now. Okay? If you're in the gym, you're listening to us, we just need you to press pause on that elliptical. Press pause. Anything else, Ted?
Put the ham sandwich down. Put the ham sandwich down. No matter how good it is, put it down.
Kelly, I had no idea he was going to say that. Put the ham sandwich down. Total surprise. Absolutely. But no, we need your undivided attention on this. Because here's the big takeaway. The question is who is holding your ladder? What's the significance of this story? Here it is. The people holding your ladder can determine how high you climb. Let me say it again.
I like how you did that, Eric.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Yeah. Whoever's holding your ladder can determine how high you climb. See, when I was in the basement, didn't matter. I could just do it on my own. But as I kept trying to climb higher, as I went to that next level, I had to upgrade my network to accomplish my goals. The higher level required a higher level network. And it just so happens that our guest today helps people to upgrade their network so they can accomplish their goals. Now's the perfect time. I think we'll go ahead and bring her on and introduce her to the world. All right. So she had this unique opportunity in 2009 that encouraged her to stop playing it safe. Prior to this encounter, she was moving along a predictable corporate career path with a law degree and business cards in hand. She had the opportunity to work alongside a visionary leader of a global business network of women, and that set off a series of events that led to her becoming a published author and a keynote speaker. And today, she's the author of Build Your Dream Network, Forging Powerful Relationships in a Hyper-Connected World. She's also the host of the Build Your Dream Network podcast. She's appeared on CNBC's Power Pitch and has contributed to publications like the New York Times, Forbes, Fast Company, and more. So please join me in welcoming to the 30-Minute Hour podcast, Kelly Hoey.
Wow.
Oh, best intro ever.
Wow. Kelly Hoey is somebody. Wow. That's impressive.
Absolutely.
It's funny when you have like a bio like that, you sit in, you just got to be like, I know you're kind of like,
No, you know what it is. You know what it is, Ted. I don't think I've reached my full potential yet.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I should hop to it at my age, but I don't feel that I've reached my full career potential yet.
No, I get it.
Oh,
yeah, that's awesome. So welcome to the podcast. It's certainly an honor to have you on. I want to give everybody the backstory of how you got to this point. And it's interesting because there are a lot of people that feel like they're on that, typical path, but they're called to do something else. So I do want to hear your backstory. So let's roll back to the clock. Let's start with your childhood. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I had no idea. None. No, seriously, I had no idea. When I ended up going off to law school, so many people said to me, "Oh, we always knew you'd do that." And I thought, I did it because my parents expected me to get an advanced degree. There was not a heck of a lot of thought in it. And I thought, well, a law degree, I can do something else with it. But there wasn't any burning idea of what I wanted to be, honestly. I mean, I was like one of those people's like, all right, I guess I'll figure this out. Keep my head down, do good work, something will appear. And sort of life and happenstance took me from the West Coast to the East Coast of Canada, or the center of Canada. Sorry for those in the Maritimes. They don't consider Toronto the East. Made career moves because for financial interests, made career move because of more prestigious law firm, made a career move because, that my, then boyfriend, now ex-husband, was, lived in New York. So, there was, people always sort of say to me, why'd you move to New York? I'm like, yeah, I wish there was a big career ambition that there wasn't.
But what was it about the law, becoming a lawyer, that really piqued your interest at the time?
It didn't. Seriously, I'm really not joking. I was brought up in one of these families where there was an expectation that you went to college and then you did a professional degree. Of course, didn't seem to apply to my brothers, but that's for another conversation another day. They didn't, but I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And maybe this is where the lesson of networks and where we see ourselves and why it's so important to diversify who we're surrounded by, because we can see a bigger vision of who we are and where our skill sets can be. I was brought up in a very narrow sort of like mindset of what was an acceptable profession and what was sort of appropriate to do. And so getting an MBA or a law degree, medical school was not, my father's a veterinarian, medical school, any of that stuff, it was like, not happening. And so I went to law school by default. So it was completely by default. I ended up in Toronto because at the time when I graduated from law school, salaries in Toronto were at least double, maybe triple Vancouver, where I went to law school. So I was like, well, they're paying more, I'll go there. And I ended up in a practice of law that I really enjoyed for a number of years, which was in banking and insolvency, particularly corporate bankruptcy work. And that was because they had a big filing and they were like, all right, who's available? Oh, Hoey's available, staff her on this. So there was a lot of things that were kind of fluke or decisions that weren't made or weren't driven by some burning career desire. And I think for a lot of people, we probably would be really, I don't know, defensive on that. What do you want to be when you grow up? And you're like, I don't know what I want to do. rather than being open and curious to try things and to understand that maybe you make some choices that are temporary and not fatal to where your career goes in the beginning. So yeah, that's what it was. I wish I could tell you that there was, sorry, Eric, no big burning desire for law school. I practiced law for 11 years after that. I have great clients I'm still in touch with. I have great colleagues from the very beginning I'm still friends with. But, I enjoyed the profession, but it wasn't one I was desiring and burning to get into to change the world or something.
Interesting. Now, I like to ask that question just because we have a lot of people that they're younger and they tend to beat themselves up because they don't have it all figured out. And they feel like a slacker because they don't. But sometimes you kind of figure it out as you go.
Right.
And where you end up is where you were supposed to be. Right.
It's paying attention. It's figuring out what interests you. It's staying curious. It's understanding that, right, what are some things you want to try? Where can you reach beyond your comfort zone? And maybe in that exercise, you'll find what you're meant to do.
Excellent. So 2009, that was a pivotal year for you.
Big one.
So talk about what happened that year that really got you to this point of where you are today.
I would love to talk about it because it is in many ways what I did. Now, the outcome may be different for people who are listening and watching, but the actions can be replicated. So in 2009, I'd stopped practicing law. I was still working in a law firm. I was over on the management side. Those in big companies will know the situation and the dilemma that I was in. I was given an assignment to rebuild an alumni program globally for this international law firm. And I was told this was a critically important project. And then I was given no staff and no budget.
There you go. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Here's the piece of gum and the paper clip, Kelly. You go for it, girl.
Wow.
And I knew saying I can't do this without staff and budget was not going to be an option. It was like, all right, what can I do? And where are there examples out there of networks that have grown based on the activity of the membership versus, sort of a top-down, administratively heavy or a program that is driven by perks because, I had a paper clip and a stick of gum and I needed those and I wasn't giving them to any of the alums. So I was like, what do I do? So I looked around and I found a group, this Global Business Network for Women. It was then at the time known as 85 Broads. Here we go, New York in the background for everybody. If they wondered where I was, here it comes.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
So 85 Broads, and 85 Broads, and the name of this organization was a tongue-in-cheek play on words because the original founders and the original members had worked at Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs' original headquarters in New York was at 85 Broad Street. So it was called 85 Broads, and it had originally started as a cocktail party for the women who had left the firm. And then someone said to the founder, who had thrown this together herself, because at the time Goldman Sachs wanted nothing to do with it, said, Janet, you should do something with this. So by the time I became a member, it had grown from a cocktail party for, like 100 women to a global network of 35,000 plus members.
Wow.
And exactly, wow. Across finance, across entrepreneurship, business. Janet Hansen, just extraordinary visionary in terms of what she did, how she created structures and city chapters and the membership site. But I wanted to understand what was going on. So I saw this network and I joined. And I didn't just join, I rolled up my sleeves, checked out every tool, figured out everything I could do because I wanted to learn what they were doing so that I could take those lessons back to the job I was doing. How can I motivate an alumni network when, let's go back to the piece of gum and the paperclip. Like I have to have members building this alumni program because I don't have anything else. So here was a good example. In the course of being really active in this network, I get a call from Janet. Now I'm going to pause here, and I've told this story, and Janet knows it. So Janet was one of the first, I think she was the first woman to be made partner at Goldman Sachs, like on the trading floor.
Wow.
Have you ever dealt with a Wall Street trader?
No.
No.
It can be a bit scary.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So Janet calls me one day and she's like, "Who are you and what do you do?" And I'm like, she's got me out. What's happened? So we talked for an hour, and I told her who I was, because she wanted to know who I was and what I was doing, because I was asking really good questions. I had become highly visible in this network within a short period of time. I was contributing more than I was asking for people to give things to me, right? And at the end of this hour-long phone call, she offered me a job that had previously never existed. I'm sure it didn't exist at the start of the phone call.
Wow.
Based on the answers, knowing Janet, she created the role. And at the end of the hour, she said, "Would you come and work with me? I'll make you the global president of 85 Broads."
Wow.
Exactly. Kind of the, little lesson for everybody listening to this is like, we can all slide our credit card, and become a member of something. And then we could sit there, and wait for the group to deliver to us, rather than proactively taking part in everything and putting your career, your skills, your talents in front of serendipity. Right? Make things happen for yourself that way, rather than thinking, oh, what are they going to do for me? How can you be of service to the organization? And that's how you network your skills, your talents, and who knows what'll happen.
Can you say that again? Can you make the serendipity point? I thought that was profound. So you said put your career and skills and talent in front of serendipity.
Right, by your activity. We can all create a profile on LinkedIn, but if you never update it, then you never post anything, and you never comment or like on anybody else's posts, good luck, right? Hope you got some good keywords so a recruiter finds you, because not much else is.
Yeah.
Your activity. People sort of wonder, and we get really, in this past year, I think people have been really anxious, and I think they've looked at past, traditional air quotes networking events with sort of rose-colored glasses of like, oh, we've missed the chance to. I'm like, there's a lot of activities and a lot of ways to create the unexpected. There's lots of ways to do that. And, look at the activity, look what you're putting out there by your behaviors, your posts, your engagement. So she offered me this job, and back to Janet and 85 Broads, she offered me this job, and I was like, what do I do? Because I say she offered me a job. What she offered me was an incredible opportunity. She offered me this ridiculous platform to expand my network and to showcase what I could do and to test things in front of a broader audience. She also offered me equity. There was no paycheck. And I was leaving a job with paycheck, benefits.
Wow.
We talked earlier, I'm Canadian. I like healthcare. So
healthcare is a good thing.
I was leaving all of that to take a complete and utter flyer. Wow. And I remember puzzling whether or not I should do this. And I was talking to one of my work colleagues. And Karen said to me, well, what's the worst that can happen? And of course, my little Neanderthal, the Neanderthal part of my brain is like, what's the worst that can happen? I can do really crap at the job. Janet fires me. Then I'm homeless and I'm living under a bridge, and I'm, trying to sell chiclets to people who park their cars off the FDR. Men may not do this. That's the crazy making place that women's brains go when we think what's the worst going to happen in our career, right? So I'm thinking, what's the worst going to happen? This is what's the worst that's going to happen. And Karen says to me, you can come back here and do your old job. And it was like a penny dropping. And so when I sort of think about, hey, networking lesson number 2 or 3 or 16, whatever number we're up to at this point, when your skill set and what you're known for in your existing profession is out there, you can always resort back to that. If you have been the good coworker, industry colleague, if you have made building internal networks at your company and external networks within your niche or your profession, you've got a name for yourself. If you haven't been that, we can all say the jerk at the office or the jerk in the industry who hasn't helped anyone else, guess what? You can go back. They're going to welcome you back with open arms. So I thought, the worst happens is I go back to a job I can do that pays me kind of well and gives me health care. Well, it's worth taking this risk. So that's when I jumped.
Wow. So at that point, Kelly, were there others that you are responsible for in the family, or was it's just you and you're making that move?
My now ex-husband, yes.
Okay. So you made the right move for you.
Yeah, right. So I've got to put it in that context too, that I had at the time a very supportive spouse who, I could talk through this. It also, in terms of my kind of career lessons to people, I say, here's the 3 things you need to do to think about your career, to give yourself flexibility, to give yourself options to move, build your expertise, be known for something, invest in your expertise. We have not reached an age where the trainings you do at work or the courses you may need to do for certifications, it's not a microchip that an employer extracts from you when you hand in your resignation. You take your skills and your expertise with you wherever you go. So make that a priority, invest in it. You are your own best investment. So make that investment. The second thing I say to people is build your network. We get where we are in life with the help of other people. The hero's journey makes a nice story, but it's kind of BS. We don't go it alone. Other people help us. And so build your network and build a diverse network so that you have these opportunities. And then the third thing I always say to people is build your bank account. Have your yes me fund so that if someone offers you some crazy opportunity that comes at a major discount to what you're earning now, or if also in terms of like a bank account, if that could be like, where can you barter and exchange with somebody else? You need a website because you're starting a business, but your friend needs someone to clean their gutters or hold the ladder while they clean the gutters. Like, all right, you build my website, I'll hold the ladder.
Hold the ladder.
Yeah, right. Whatever it may be, where can your bank account could be that, not just dollars. But having that structure in place enabled me to take a risk and to de-risk, a situation. Because otherwise, if I hadn't had that in place, there's part of me that might have been that sort of, career fear gremlin that we have in our heads that would have said, ooh, this is too risky. Stay put. You just keep volunteering there, Kelly, and keep being a member, and that'll be enough. But you need these other things because you can't make career moves. So, build your expertise, build your network, build your bank account.
And I think a takeaway from your story for me is that the fact, and I say this to people all the time, like, you never know who's watching, right? And that's why. So you just like, you weren't in this network space thinking, okay, I'm going to do this and somebody's going to offer me this position. And you were just doing what you do.
What you do.
Right. And
And I was going to say, and that can happen. Like one of the career moves I made in law happened because opposing counsel saw what I could do. And then when our case was closed, a couple of weeks later, one of the lawyers called and said, we got an opening.
Mm.
I have some networking pet peeves in my mind.
Oh, go for it.
Now I'm going to let you go because there's just certain things that just, do you have any of those things that just irritate you, like networking no-nos that people should avoid?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start because I've got mine, and you just have to let me know if this show is PG because I can lose it on some of this. Let's start with the "you two should know each other" email that you get. Someone emails, "Hey, Eric, you should know Ted. I thought you two should know each other. I'll let you two take it from here." How many times you got one of those? And I'm like, WTF? I'm not going to figure this out. No. Or I've got a friend. I say that friend, air quote friend, and I have not completely blocked them because I like to kind of keep track on the time. It's probably coming up on 7 years. Like every 7 years shows up in my inbox needing something, and then disappears.
Wow.
Yeah.
Only when he or she needs something.
Oh yeah, the 911 networkers.
911 networking. That's something you definitely want to avoid.
Right. Or the people who they say, well, you know what? Tell me about you. And you're like, you asked for the call. Did you Google my name? Like, really?
Yeah, that's not good.
Those are really short calls. Like, do your homework.
Yeah.
Before you show up with the assignment, do your homework.
Yeah.
All right, but what are yours, Eric?
Here's mine. Okay. This irritates me to no end. We're at a conference, we're at an event, we exchange business cards, and all of a sudden now I'm getting your newsletter every week.
Oh.
And I'm saying, and I'm like, maybe I opted in, I don't remember.
Okay, so this is what I do, Eric, Ted, everybody listening. I have what I refer to as a junk email. That's the one I subscribe to newsletters on. So I know if a newsletter ends up in any of my other inboxes, I didn't subscribe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I did not ask to be on your newsletter just because we talked once. Yeah.
So I think that's definitely, for anybody that's watching us now, that's not a good thing.
No. Or I had one recently. I called it the bait and switch. Oh, I'd love to bring you up to date on my career. And the next thing I know, I've got the person and their new manager, and they're trying to pitch me something.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, and I have to do like poker face on a Zoom where I really just want to reach through the camera and stab their eyes out.
It bothers you just a little bit, huh, Kelly?
Oh yeah. Oh, just a little bit. Yeah.
In networking, one of the things that just gets me is just when you meet someone and then they just tell you just everything about themselves and just go on and on and on. And I tell people all the time, I say, the first thing you want to do is just connect.
Mm-hmm.
Connect. Then you get to know, and then you start, kind of getting into whatever it is you like to share. But if you just jump on and just press play, and especially at a networking event, it's music, people are talking, it's noisy. I'm like, I'm not going to strain my ears trying to hear all of that. Then I'm probably going to end up, you're going to want to talk to me again about in some meeting, a follow-up coffee or lunch or whatever.
So in my book, Build Your Dream Network, this is a good time, for people to, maybe put down the ham sandwich and stop driving and
put down the ham sandwich. That's right. Tell them put it down, Kelly.
Right.
Exactly.
So I want to put it down, and I want you to write on a piece of paper what you think networking is. Because my guess is, Ted and Eric, there's a lot of people who think networking is, right, the schmoozing at the cocktail party, the talking to strangers. And if that's what you think networking is, write that on a piece of paper. And if you're not watching this live because you don't want to miss anything, but if you're listening to this later, I want you to, take that piece of paper. You can hit pause on the podcast now, and take that piece of paper and go over to your toilet and flush the old definition down the toilet. When I think of networking, this is where exactly, Ted, this is like building a relationship, not a one and done. And we build our relationship by how we show up every single day. And we build trust by the consistency of our actions. So when I think of networking, I think of it as being every single human interaction. How you say hello, how you enter a Zoom, your LinkedIn profile, what's the email signature line, what's the information you pass on, what's on your business card. Like, all of those things are networking. We remember how you mentor, how you volunteer, who you recommend, the work you do, like all of that is networking. And if you start thinking about it that way, for some people that could be very scary, because now they're thinking about all the relationships that they've interacted with poorly. But for a lot of people, it should be a big sigh of relief, because now that thought and idea that you have to work a room is dispelled. There may be times you need to work a room, but what you really need to do is do the things you're already doing that cause you to interact and bump into and exchange information with other people, and do it a little bit better. And I think the grain of this idea came to me when I was a young attorney. This was in the early 90s, 1991 to be exact. Let's think of the technology we had back then, probably a Palm Pilot. And just beyond the rotary phone, we probably had a pager.
You're taking Eric back, Kelly. You're taking Eric back. That's all a little before my time.
Yeah, Ted hadn't been born yet.
No,
yeah.
I hadn't been born.
Ignore the gray and the beard. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So there I am as a young attorney, and I realized there was an inherent tension between two things I needed to do to excel and move ahead. I needed to be really good at the work I was doing, and I needed to bill a lot of hours, but I needed to build client relationships as well. And if you did too much of one and not enough of the other, you had to get these things in some kind of balance. Otherwise, there's only so far you could go. You could be the great schmoozer, but you were crap at your work, or you were so good at your work and with the head down, but if you didn't have client relationships, you'd never have your own book of business. So how could you get equilibrium? And that's where I was like, okay, what are the things I do every day? You set up a conference call, you get the client on the phone. You don't have to jump to, section 3, definition 14 of whatever. You could ask them how their day was. You could remember a birthday. You could remember, something they said on the last call that you could ask and update them about. You could send them the tickets to the ball game, because guess what? You had other client work to do and you couldn't leave your seat. And that meant they could take their kid. Right. So where were the ways you could build relationships when you were literally chained to your desk? And so I think that's where the grain of that idea came from. And it has enabled me to consistently build relationships and not drop them, and to make wiser and smarter choices where you do have to, work a room.
So Kelly, this is something I get from people sometimes that say, I'm not outgoing, I'm more introverted. So what advice do you have for that person who feels like they're an introverted personality? What steps can they take to get better with networking?
Read my book. No, I say that tongue in cheek, but I don't say it tongue in cheek. So my book is case study driven, and I requested interviews with people who I had watched achieve success and knew that part of what they do and had them unpack their stories was how they built and engaged and tapped into networks. And I did not ask them the personality type. And it wasn't until I was getting the answers that I'd realized what I'd done. Vast majority, probably 70% of the people I interviewed are introverts. I think people who are more intentional and focused, considerate and deliberate are far better network builders than those who, right, are like, don't confuse the gift of the gab with building a good network. Just because you can work a room doesn't mean you have a bunch of people who are going to support and champion you. You know, all of us need people who can spark a conversation, because we might have that awkward dinner party and we need to sit someone next to Uncle Hal because no one else wants to, right? Let's invite Judy. She can talk to anybody, right? I mean, have you been invited to a wedding and you're thinking, why am I at this table? And then you're like, oh, right. They thought I'd, you know, carry the conversation. Great, right?
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're a good networker. And if you go back to the way I think about networking, people who are much more like, okay, Eric and Ted have a podcast. Maybe I shouldn't ask them if they want to do something on a Monday night when you usually let your show out, right? Like, people who are thinking about other people. Or thinking of a one time I interviewed a very prominent New York City venture capitalist at an event, and someone came up afterwards and said, "Oh, can you introduce me to Joanne?" And I said, "Did you listen to the interview with her at all? She told you how you could connect with her in very clear terms." So I think people who are, like I said, that considerate, deliberate, focused, they understand what it means to take someone else's time. They know what it means to impinge on somebody else's relationships and reputation, because they know what it feels like when someone does that to them. They're going to ask something more focused, something that the network is happy to respond to, which is not to say that introverts don't have to get out of their comfort zone. And we can talk about one of my favorite case studies in the book on that one. But I think, for people who think that networking is cocktail parties and strangers, of course you're going to think that the outgoing personality is the right type, but you don't have to network that way. Take that definition, pause the podcast if you're listening to it after it's live, go to the toilet, flush that old definition down. Don't take the ham sandwich with you when you go to the bathroom.
Don't take the ham sandwich in the bathroom.
Don't flush the ham sandwich. I'm sorry, Eric. I'm encouraging you.
Oh man, like Kelly, that fits right in with the podcast. I'll tell you.
Listen, you know what? When Ted's not available, I'll just say, call me.
Right. I'm gonna see some special podcasts up on like on Saturday afternoon. Look, is that Eric and Kelly? Did Kelly just say put the ham sandwich down? Unbelievable.
But I want to go. Can we go back to where we started at the very beginning? You talked about the ladder, and I was thinking about a story, and I think it also really illustrates like a different way, an approach, and a mindset to how you think about networking. And it was back when I was president of 85 Broads, and I was invited to a very fancy, networking breakfast, what you would traditionally think of a networking event, invitation only, the 21 Club, high profile, panel of speakers, all these movers and shakers in New York City. And there's me, sort of like, hi, right. Feeling like, the fraud in the room. I had this fancy title, and so, it sort of parted the waters like Moses. Anyhow, there I am. Key table. One of the speakers was Glenda Bailey, who was the then editor-in-chief of Harper's Bazaar magazine. And she was asked what her greatest career achievement was. And this is the story that she told as I remember it. When she was hired by Harper's Bazaar, this was the first time she'd worked for a US publication. She'd always worked for British or European publications. So she flew her family to New York, got settled, found the keys to her office, and immediately had to fly back to London for London Fashion Week. And at that time with London Fashion Week, the way the runway was set up, the editors-in-chief of major magazines and media publications were in the front rows on either side of the runway. Not Kardashians, not bloggers, not, singers and all that kind of stuff, editors-in-chief of magazines. And what they also did was in London Fashion Week at the time, they would sit the editors-in-chief of British and European magazines on one side, and the Americans and the rest of the world on the other side. So she had this new vantage point, and she was now looking across the runway, like at her former career and colleagues, and had this completely different perspective because of where she was. And as Glenda told the story, and as I said, editors-in-chief, keep that in mind. Top dogs, front row, both sides. She looked across the runway, and as she told the story, she saw a familiar face. So she waved. And the entire front row waved back.
Wow.
And then her career hit her. Her greatest career achievement, she'd mentored every single one of those people.
Wow.
So you talk about who's holding the ladder. It's like, who are you extending the ladder and the hand down to? And your career success doesn't necessarily mean you have to block doors and close doors and hinder and inhibit someone else. Someone else's career success is not going to take away your career success. And you can get more and further in life by helping other people get where they are going. So when you think about networking and network building, how are you mentoring? How are you managing? How are you leading? How are you showing up for other people's careers?
Wow.
Yeah, I think that requires an abundance mindset, right? You had to really think that, hey, you know what? Because some people believe that there's this limited supply of resources. So I have to compete with Kelly or else I'm going to lose. This is a zero-sum game. But we have to believe that we can all win, right?
Right. I think, maybe North Korea is playing zero-sum game. For the rest of us, we can play a game.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So
apologies to any of your podcast listeners in North Korea.
Don't think we've gotten to North Korea just yet. Yeah, the UK, Australia, not yet. All right. So,
edit that part out if that happens.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
So you've been talking about your book, Build Your Dream Network, Forging Powerful Relationships in a Hyper-Connected world. So talk more about just some of the things that make your book different from other books on the topic of networking.
Oh, and there's some great books out there. There's a lot of really great books. Mine really focuses on, I think, both this reshaping of what networking is rather than trying to fix you to fit into a particular networking paradigm. It's let's fix what we think about networking and let's find sustainable models and a sustainable networking pathway to take your career forward. There's a whole lot of case studies in here so that you can see, oh, right, I can do this. My frustration, in the past of reading networking books were, you'd hear someone, I don't know, they had lunch with Bill Gates or something, and you're thinking, well, how do I have lunch with Bill Gates? Like, I don't want to hear your story at lunch with Bill Gates. Show me the recipe so I can have lunch with him, right? Like, so I really wanted to make it so that people had their aha moment and the confidence, more importantly, to say, oh my God, I can do this. And oh my God, it works. And then that encourages them to keep that muscle going and moving forward. And then I think that then, you know, Eric, the whole integration of online networking, because I don't think of online networking any differently than, you know, real networking, as some people would say. So, you know, LinkedIn is the office. I sort of feel I need to starch my shirt and, you know, put on his blazer and grab a briefcase when I get on LinkedIn. You know, Twitter's the great cocktail party. So how are you good? How are you the good guest? How do you have that kind of conversation? No, and Facebook, that's like, how are you talking to your family around the Thanksgiving table? Context matters, but we don't and shouldn't treat digital as somehow as lesser or inadequate. Mm-hmm. It can be equally powerful. The foreword to the paperback edition to my book was written by a best-selling author, Tom Peters. Tom wrote In Search of Excellence, best-selling business book for like 40 years.
Little Big Things.
Yeah, all of those things. So Tom and I started following each other on Twitter. I used to, when I got on Twitter in like 2009, I would follow people who were talking corporate governance, management, leadership. Like those were the cocktail parties I was going. Kelley is crazy. Those are the cocktail parties she was going to on Twitter. Yeah, she was going to the leadership, management, corporate governance. And that's when I started following Tom. So you think about, like, if people are watching this conversation right now, all of us have said things and, you know, we nod our heads and we're like, yeah, I agree. Well, how is a nod any different than a like? How is a retweet any different than saying, wow, this is interesting? How is a retweet with a comment any different than if you were in a cocktail party and you said to someone else, you should join this conversation because it's a good one? And that banter on Twitter led to Tom discovering my book, buying my book. He and I direct messaging because I was like, yo, we got the same publisher. I think they could have sent you one, but thanks for buying it, Tom. To me, then turning to him for advice, he offered to write the foreword. I would say now he's a friend. He's a mentor. He's the type of person I can pick up the phone to, who, you know, send cards, letters, you know, contact that way. And we've met once in person. Once. And that is over what, 2009 to 2000. And we won't count 2020. That year is kind of just so what, 12 years of friendship? And it all started on Twitter.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to a business colleague of mine, and he was just saying, I just can't wait till things open back up because I just got to be able to go and see a client, like shake their hand. And I'm like, you can virtually shake anyone's hand. Like, you know, over this past year, I mean, this virtual world, I've had more meetings, connected with more people, just had just more meaningful discussion than ever without having to waste gas, pay for parking. You know, I mean, you're just able to do it. I mean, because I think, you know, this virtual world, I mean, this is really where it is if you take the time to really leverage it.
It opens up a whole world to us. But I think that comment by that colleague also, again, it's pigeonholing what is an acceptable sort of roster of networking activities, and you should do one of these things, rather than thinking, what does that other person want to do? Because I don't know about you, I have friends that, other than, okay, this will show age again, who remembers the movie Boy in a Plastic Bubble with John Travolta?
Kelley, you keep throwing stuff out there that I just know Eric is just like, man, I was there. The opening night of that movie, he had to get his outfit together, his friends. He was like, when Friday came, he's like, man, I am there.
Okay, Ted hadn't been born yet. Yeah,
that was all before my time.
Exactly.
So I have some friends who are complete. They were germaphobes before 2020. unless they have a boy in the plastic bubble kind of environment or a hazmat suit, they are not coming out in the world.
Right.
It's going to be behind the little screen, or it's going to be a text. Yeah. They aren't show up on their doorstep and shake their hand. They're going to, you know, probably like run screaming in the other direction. So we've got to think about the other person and their communication, their interaction preferences, and not taking advantage of these digital tools. If not, you don't even need to act proactively like outreach. Hey, let's get on a Zoom. What you need to do is watch and observe how somebody else wants to engage and where they are responsive, and go and meet them there.
Meet them where they are. Well, that's great advice. So you also have the Build Your Dream Network podcast. So what can people expect when they tune in?
Well, it's currently on hiatus because I used to go and record at Penguin Random House, and well, I can't get in there to see my crew. So we put it on hiatus, but there are 52 episodes. There are a handful of interviews and some really in-depth ones that I highly recommend. You can get some really great insights on, you know, the use of Twitter and career change, that kind of thing. But the majority are, I want to say, 10-minute or less Kelly rants on things that annoy her with the way people network. So from, you know, what networking is, to being ghosted in a job search, to how you land an internship, to changing jobs, to not to make the biggest networking mistake, failure to follow up. So, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So you get, you know, Kelly on a rant for 10 minutes, easy peasy. So scroll through those 52 episodes.
Now, you bring up something interesting. I was reading in one of these books on networking, and they were saying that people are so bad at follow-up that if you consistently follow up, like you're in the top 10%, and just that can go a long way if you just follow up.
Oh, I would put it higher than the follow, and not follow up as in, hey Eric, hey Ted, thanks for having me on your podcast. That was great. No, that's just common courtesy.
Right.
That's not a follow-up. The follow-up is the thing afterwards.
Right.
Hey, I remember we talked about this, or I've listened to some recent episodes and you guys mentioned this. Here's somebody I know that could be an interesting guest. Here's their profile. You know, what do you think? Like, that's the kind of follow-up where someone makes a job lead or a business lead for you. You know, you circle back and you let them know what happened in the meeting or how the advice turned out. That's the follow-up that turns a sort of a transactional conversation into a relationship, or turns someone who is now going to be willing to reach further into their network to help you out. Or they're going to go back to Eric's example from the beginning. They're going to hold that ladder a little bit tighter. Oh, you know, maybe if you told those kids that they were going to get an extra half hour of, you know, screen time, they would have been there for you, Dad. But
we got you, Dad. We got you. Stop shaking. We got you, Dad.
So, you know, but people don't do this. I had a, you know, example of a friend of mine who, because of the pandemic, a very senior woman on Wall Street, she was able to do like 15-minute kind of speed mentoring with women, younger women in the industry, because she hadn't had time before the pandemic, but now she could carve out this time. Okay, out of 50 interviews, like these mentoring interviews, speed mentoring, guess how many people reached out to say, thank you for taking the time?
Out of 50?
10. I would say probably 3 or 4.
Eric for the win.
3 out of 50?
Right. So, and I'm saying 3 out of 50 said thank you. It should have been 50 out of 50 on the thank you. My guess is the follow-up that will now turn someone from having a one-time speed mentoring with a very, you know, busy professional with a heck of a lot of clout on Wall Street. You know, the numbers who followed up after that is probably 1, if any. And I'm like, what are you doing? So yes, the failure to follow up is the biggest networking mistake because it's the easiest one to correct. No loud music, no cocktail party required.
So you just help somebody. They're going to start following up, and they're going to stop adding people to their distro list without telling them. So
there's a special place in networking hell. Those people get to go to the networking events where they're like, yes, but I registered, and the person at registration is going, I can't find your registration. Could you go over there? Like there you are dining. It's like purgatory.
Oh man. All right. So it is now time to go around the horn. So Kelley, this is Ted's favorite part of the program. This is where we each leave that closing thought, that parting thought, as Ted is turning his video off. We each leave that closing thought that we want people to remember about us in this episode. So Kelley, you're the guest of honor. We'll start with you.
I want the listeners to tell us what they remembered. And let's, Eric, Ted, let's make a little incentive to do that. So my Instagram is at J Kelly Hoey. That's JKELLYHOEY. But what's the Instagram account for this podcast?
It's at the 30-minute hour.
So here's what I want people to do. I want you to go to the 30-minute hour Instagram. I want you to tag me in the comments, and I want you to tell us what your big takeaway was. And out of the people who do that, there is an incentive besides they're like, oh, that's great, Kelley. We get to go over to their Instagram account and tag you and make a comment. Woo, that's a big surprise. No. With these fine gentlemen, we are going to randomly select 3 listeners, viewers, and we are going to select 3 winners, and I am going to sign and send copies of my book. So there's the details.
There you go.
At JK Hoey, tag me, but you got to go over and make a comment when you see this post in this posted in the 30-minute hour Instagram account. Tell us what your big takeaway was, or what your networking question was we didn't answer, and then we will randomly select 3 winners to get a copy of my book.
That's a great offer. That's a generous offer. I hope everybody, you're taking advantage of that. You want to go? I see we've got Nicole and Charlene have been commenting on Facebook. Got to go to the 30-minute hour Instagram page, like she said, and that book can be yours.
But if you got an active Facebook group, we can look at those too.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. But I'm active on Instagram. I'm not active on Facebook, so that's why I'm like, get over there. Follow us. Let us know the questions you didn't ask. Let us know the big takeaways from today. And if you need to listen to this again so you can figure out what the takeaway is, well, then just do that.
Just do it again.
Just do it. Absolutely.
Well, now what you got, Ted?
Look, I think that was good what you said. I'm not saying anything. I can say, did I point the right place? It's this way. Yeah. Ditto.
Ditto. Yes.
How can I follow that? Go get her. Go do it and get her book. Autograph.
Absolutely. So as far as my closing, I don't have a lot for the closing, though. Something just came to mind. So I remember when I was just starting out my work career, and I had a mentor that told me that there's 3 types of people, right? He said the first person, they are great at their job, that they can do the work, but they're not good with networking. They don't really understand networking. He said that person's not going to get but so far, even though they're really great at the job. Then you said you have the second person who's not good at the job, but he's great with networking and building relationships. eventually that person may get farther in some cases than the person that's great at the job, but that lack of confidence may catch up with them if they're not great at the job. Then you have the third person. The third person is excellent with networking and has great confidence. That's the person that can go far. Right. And that's always stayed with me. And I think Kelly, like we were talking earlier, people miss some networking opportunities, whether you're in a job or even if you're out with your own business. Right. And your story is a great example of how far networking can take you.
Right. Well, as I love that story. I love that example of what your boss said. And as I say to people, it's not who you know or what you know, it's who knows what you know.
You know, the one nugget I will give on networking, I tell people this all the time, is you just have to just constantly practice, quick small talk. Right? Like whether it's on the elevator, whether it's at a restaurant with that server, whether it's just wherever, just quick small talk. And sometimes it's just saying hello to someone.
There's a lot of social science research on how that adds to our health and well-being, besides, I would say, mental health in a way of like, you're being seen, because that's part of it with networking. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be acknowledged. So in terms of how that adds to our overall well-being, and that is absolutely the part of our network that over the last year has been absent and has shrunk, because we have not had those incidental kind of interactions and banter with acquaintances.
Yeah.
Yeah. We shall overcome, though. We shall overcome.
Yes.
Right. That's
yes.
Right.
All right. I mean, with your help, because you dropped some serious networking nuggets and really provided some insights to help people get better with this. So how can people best connect with you?
Well, I think if they jump over that Instagram and tag me, well, we'll be all connected, won't we? But if you're, foolish enough to ignore that fine offer and opportunity, you can head over to my website, jkellyhoey.co. So jkellyhoey.co. And then, of course, there will be the links to my social accounts, and you will see the Instagram, which you should maybe click through and pay attention to, so that you can maybe get a copy of my book. Just saying.
Absolutely. All right. Well, yeah, this has been a fantastic episode of the 30-Minute Hour podcast. See, I told you at the beginning, we want to make you laugh, help you to learn, and ultimately help you to level up. I feel like we've accomplished that. So all we ask is share the show, right? Don't keep Kelly
share the show.
Exactly.
Yeah, share the show.
Don't
want everyone to win.
She's got some great insights. She's got an awesome book. If you really apply those networking tactics, techniques, mindset, you can get to that next level. Well, as you've seen, this is not your everyday podcast. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Also on Instagram at the 30-Minute Hour, where you can take advantage of that offer we talked about earlier. And you can also listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Anywhere you like to get your podcast, there you'll find us. That is our show for today. I want to thank you once again, Kelly. Before we sign off, just want to say thank you for everything that you shared and which you've added to our show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And until next time, have a great one.
Have a great one.